Welcome to Bonehead. James, take us away.
So this week our guest is Mr. Paul Elliott. And to be honest, I became aware of Mr. Elliott because Jeffrey Combs on Twitter corrected someone who was talking about the antenna on the Andorians in Star Trek Enterprise, and there was a photo of someone working those antenna, and that immediately made me say, I want to know who did that. And Mr. Paul Elliott is the mind behind the Andorian antenna and several other things that we'll talk about. So that's our guest this week.
So, Paul, after he said all that, can you believe that you've got a stalker over antenna? Now, we have a good time with this. That's actually what I was, that was the third thing I was going to say is we try to have a good time and joke as we go. But I mean, did you know on your Friday night you were going to have to talk to 3 Hilljacks from Kentucky because you
I'm
did
just
work on one
surprised
show?
it's Friday night. That's all.
That's true. That's true.
But obviously, none of us have anything better to do on a Friday night.
Hey,
None in the current situation.
I'm going to say this: James was your initial stalker, and then he said he got you, and then I looked at your website, and now I'm a stalker. So you're.
In a minute, we're going to ask how many naked pictures you have on Sam Jackson to be able to work on him that much, but we'll get to that in a second.
Which should be the other thing that I say. Your real claim to fame is owning the makeup and effects laboratory that has worked on, as I look more and more at it, going back to Star Trek The Next Generation and lots of feature films, which is where Sam Jackson comes in, and a lot of other stuff. So probably more what you're known for than my obsession with Andorian antenna.
No problem. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the company. It was started by my original partner. He was a makeup artist back in 1978. He started the company with a couple of other people. And over the years, people came in and people left, other people came in. And around 1986, I started at the company as an intern. And non-paying job. I basically I was a computer engineer for at school and for about 4 years, and decided that, this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I wanted to do special effects. And so they allowed me to be an intern, which means you work hard and get paid nothing.
Right.
For almost a year and a half. And over the years, the players have changed. And about 7 years ago, Alan and I became partners, and it was just the two of us. And the beginning of 2020, it actually is just me now. So I own the company.
Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning like we normally do. I'm curious, where did your love of movies, television, comics, what have you, cinema, where did it start?
Well, I was always a huge science fiction fan and always loved Star Trek. That was one of my favorites. And when I saw the original Star Wars movie, like many of people, that's the thing that really set me off and made me want to get into this industry. And I tried to apply to every special effects company out here in California, and Mel was the only place that said yes. So that's how my journey began, and that's the only place I've ever been.
Well, that's very unusual, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I mean, normally you go from job to job to job, especially makeup effects folks, they'll just bounce from house to house to house. Whoever has a big project, they kind of hire everybody in town and then they just kind of bounce.
Absolutely. And one of the things about my talents, I don't have a single makeup talent in my finger. Okay. Alan Apone, he was the makeup artist. In fact, he started as Don Johnson's makeup artist in Miami Vice, and then he moved on to Sam Jackson for many years. He was Sam's makeup artist. Me, I'm more mechanical, electrical, and stuff like that. So that's where my skills come in. And like you said, with the different jobs, the way the shop works is we're either very busy or we're very nothing's going on. When we're very busy, we do pull all those people in.
Yeah, pilfer.
From different shops. And normally what happens is once there's a big job at one shop, everybody else has got a big job going too. So then it becomes very difficult finding people.
Right. So where are you from, sir?
I'm originally from Yonkers, New York.
I thought I heard it. Yeah, yeah. Just like you could hear us, I'm sure, from
Yes.
the moment we started talking.
Yeah, I came out to California in '77 to go to school.
Oh, really? Where did you go to school at?
Cal State Long Beach.
Okay. So
So,
Star Trek, Star Wars, was there other things that influenced you as well? It was like, I've got to get into motion pictures. I've got to get into movies. Was there just that one thing that just, I have to do that?
it was mostly from Star Wars as far as the mechanics and
Yeah.
all the props and stuff like that. I just wanted to be able to do that, and I socked away enough money so that it took me almost a year to get into a shop, and it finally paid off eventually.
We all three work in education, and we're always telling people that internships are the way to a job. Not getting paid, I know it's counterintuitive, but trying to tell a young person that if you can get an internship, show up, work, it'll often turn into a job.
Well, it's exactly true, and one of the things is that we have an internship program at our shop,
Uh-huh.
and what we've found over the years, it's got more and more difficult for the kids to stick with it.
Yep.
You know, I'll go in a year's time, we'll go through 100 interns, and maybe 3 or 4 of them end up working out. And it's like you
Wow.
said, you know, you have to be persistent, you have to be
Yep.
have a drive,
Yep.
and because no one's going to give it to you because everybody wants it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's not
That-
necessarily always about the talent, is it, sir? It's a lot of times about that persistence.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
it actually it leads me to actually a question I did want to ask. So when you're looking at these interns or those interns that get really involved, if somebody is listening to this and wants to get into this, what are your recommendations? What do you look for, and what would you say they need to do to make that kind of leap?
Well, one of the things is that it's not necessarily, I mean, there are extremely talented people out there. I mean, just flat out artists. And they have a step up on the guy that doesn't really have a lot of talent. But the artist that doesn't have the drive and the willing to put the time in, put the effort in, I'm gonna always hire the person that puts the work in. And at my shop is, you know, an intern. What we usually will end up doing is if an intern has worked out well for us for 3 months, let's say, the next time a job comes in, I'll hire the intern. And that's their foot in the door. That's the only way you can get because then they can say, well, I worked at this shop, so he can now go and work at another shop, or she can go work at another shop.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's talk about, so you've applied for all these jobs and you finally get hired on at Mel. I just out of curiosity, you get hired on. What is the first project you work on there?
I had to clean out the mechanical room.
Oh,
I had to sort nuts and bolts.
oh my!
Nuts and bolts. You got screwed.
Yeah, I did, absolutely. But the fact that I stuck to it and I reorganized it showed them something, you know. And eventually, I got to be used on other things, and you know, that's the way it works out. That's the way I worked my way up the ladder, and now it's mine.
So what was your, out of curiosity, what was your foot in the door? What project did they give you where they hired you on? What was the very first one?
Basically, what my foot in the door was a friend of a friend. Alan had worked at a company beforehand, and I worked at an electronics firm with this other guy. And he said, you know, well, I have a friend. So they sent me over there, and that's how they brought me on. It was purely coincident because I was basically giving up. It was almost 5 months of looking for shops to get into, and it was this last ditch thing that got me into it.
So was it 4 or 5 months of just trying to find an internship, much less a paying gig, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't get paid for almost a year.
So what was your first movie? What was your first show that you worked on there?
the first thing I did there was when the Sci-Fi Channel first came out on television,
Yep.
first time as a network, they had an alien puppet that was in the intro,
Hmm.
and I worked on that puppet. So that was the first claim to fame for me.
Which is funny because the first thing ever shown on the Sci-Fi Channel was Star Wars.
Yeah, that was
I'm
right.
almost positive, right, guys? Wasn't that the first thing that was shown on the Sci-Fi Channel
I
was
think
Star
so.
Wars? I know. I think I was watching it. I was a little bit of a nerd myself, if you didn't already guess that. So you started on the puppet.
Mhm.
Now, being a computer, so you're an engineer.
Computer
How
engine.
how did you transfer those skills to basically kind of more of a? So a friend of ours is an electrical engineer, and then I work in higher ed, so I know people who are into computer engineering and civil engineering, yada yada yada. How did you transfer those skills? Do you see
Well,
what I'm saying?
it,
How did you
yeah,
learn to start to learn that trade?
well, basically, I used some of that, but the other part that I had a knack for was mechanical.
Yeah.
I was the kid that when the washing machine was broken at home, I always took it apart and was able to fix it with a pile of parts sitting on the pile on the side after it went back together. Explaining to my mom that, well, it still works. You don't need all those parts.
Right.
So I always had a mechanical. So at Mel, they had a pretty decent machine shop. So and that place where I sorted all the nuts and bolts, well, that's where the machine shop was. So I learned to work on the lathes
Mm-hmm.
and the mills in there. So whenever anything came in that was something that had to be machined or something like that, that's where I got my experience from. And basically it's from people in our industry, okay, are not willing to extend themselves to you unless you're showing them that you have the desire to really learn. And I was fortunate enough that there were a bunch of people that went through the shop. They would hire a mechanic that came in, and if he was nice enough, he would let me watch. And that's what I did. I tried to soak it all up.
Okay. All right.
So one of the things that, and I don't mean to keep going back to the Andorian antenna, but going back to also talking about the robotics you did for the puppet, one of the things that Jeffrey Combs actually mentioned at one point was somebody asked a question about what were they distracting, having that a puppeteered mechanical element on your head. And he said actually that they were really whisper quiet, and he was very, very complimentary about that. And that was, I just was thinking about what was the control mechanism for that. Was it
Well, let me back up a little bit about that. The shop has been working on Star Trek since Next Generation time,
Mhm.
and our big in contact with was Michael Westmore,
Mhm.
makeup artist for Star Trek and all the years, and famous makeup artist. So he's the one that would got us into the Star Trek, the Paramount world. Then we got involved with another gentleman who was the prop master for, and I'll think about his name in a second. But essentially, what happened with Enterprise and the Andorian antennas is Michael Westmore came and said, "Well, we'd like to do this, but nobody knows how to do it. What can you do?" So Michael had sculpted these antennas, and basically what I did is I created it's almost like a tentacle um, with that was mounted to a plate, okay, and then the plate was mounted to the back of the head, and then that was covered up with the wig and stuff, and then cables came down from the tentacles to a pack on the bottom of his belt that had the servos in it. Actually, no, let me back. It's been a while. Let me back up. The servos, there were 4 servos that were actually mounted to this plate also. So it was a pretty large thing that they had to hide with the makeup and the wig. that existed in the back of the head. The power for were battery packs that went down to his belt. Now that I remember that. And basically, it was an RC controlled with a radio controlled radio, and the two joysticks on the thing would control. You know, you can go front, back, left, and right, okay, or independently like this. So that was my job when I was on set. And what made it so much fun is, first of all, Jeffrey Combs is an awesome person. He's a great actor and stuff like that. And we would talk about, you know, he would explain to me what he had to do in the scene and stuff like that to give me a key. And we started getting into a rhythm where, as a puppeteer, because I've been a puppeteer on other things too, is that you become part of the character.
Right.
You're an actor that actually gets to act in the scene, and that's the way I approach it, and that's the way that it worked out so well with the show.
That's what I was going to ask as my follow-up. But first of all, you're right. We've spent some time with Jeffrey, and he's hilarious. I've had the chance, but it's neither here nor there. I love a lot of the inappropriate jokes, but so I imagine you had a good time being with him all that time. But you guys, did you develop a shorthand? Were you the only one doing that?
Basically,
the puppeteer?
I was dependent upon the episode and the scene. Okay, there was usually either one or two Andorians in the scene, but I was always doing the main one.
Right. My
My partner, John Pfeiffer,
uh-huh.
was doing usually the background characters, the secondary ones. It was just a lot of, you know, a lot of interaction with what was happening on the set. We've developed I developed some feeling as far as, you know, what does this antenna do as far as reacting to environment, you know, where it was either angry or sad or happy, or you tried to convey that. And I don't remember specifically what I came up with, but I tried to stay consistent with that throughout the whole thing, so that you as watching the character would realize what was happening in the scene by looking at the antennas also.
Yeah, it's just like it's like your mouth or another set of eyes, just something else to give you that non-verbal communication of what the character is experiencing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So while we're talking about puppetry, I mean, I'm going to have to bring this up. I'm going to go right to it, because when James said he booked you, I got on the website and I was automatically interested. But what really got me perked up was when I saw the Goomba. I am an unabashed fan of Super Mario Brothers. I have the original motion picture poster. And you know, I just love that movie. I know that it wasn't probably an interesting time shooting that movie based on the stories that we have heard.
Oh no, it was interesting.
You got to share some. If you don't mind, I would love to hear some stories. Yeah, because
I mean, you know, one of the interesting things. I was. This was back in 92 or 94, so I was still more in the background. You know, when we first designed at the shop, the Goombas and stuff like that, they originally were cable connected. Okay, so that the Goombas were actually, they couldn't walk around without it. And when we got to North Carolina, then I figured out a way to do it remote controlling. So that was the part that I kind of added to that. That set, I mean, that was one of the best set experiences I've ever had, because they put us up in North Carolina for 2 months.
Wow.
On the beach at Brighton Beach.
Yeah.
And it was great. You know, so I've got nothing but, you know, high praise for what happened. Now, on set, it was kind of difficult at times because the two directors, they didn't like each other, but they were married.
We've heard.
So that added to some of the complications and some of the problems on set. And you know, it's still, the funny thing is like Hark, the main Goomba, okay, did not start out as such a prominent character in the film, but once they saw what he did and stuff like that, they increased his role as far as being a character in it.
So you have to have at least one good meltdown story. I know it's been a while, and normally I wouldn't press, but I'm with Chad on this one.
Yeah, 'cause
that
I mean, you know,
that
we-
movie is notorious. And by the way, I love the sets, I love the production design, but I mean, it's notorious from the actors telling all the stories, from the directors, from the producers.
Yeah, I believe there was a story of the directors even like they coming up with one of the side characters in costume, and they hated the makeup and costume so bad that they actually poured hot coffee on the actress wearing it. I mean, it was.
You know, I didn't. Again, I was a little bit more in the background on that
Yeah.
film that I didn't get to experience, so I don't really have any great stories from that.
Okay, well, I'll lead into the next. Go ahead, Chad.
But I do got to ask: do you at least still have a Goomba in the studio? Because I've seen those pictures, and I'm just like, oh man.
we have one left, but I've got the mechanics for it, but I no longer have the costume for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so because there was a phase there where the shop, you know, because a lot of the stuff that you make does not have a shelf life. Okay,
Right.
The foam latex and stuff like that does
Right.
break. A period of time, we sold off a lot of stuff to places like you know, collectors, and also things like Planet Hollywood had gotten a lot of our stuff. They in fact got the mechanical horse from True Lies because one of the owners was Arnold.
Yeah, Schwarzenegger. Well, yeah, I never thought about that business part of it, because you basically make one-of-a-kind collectibles for geeks and nerds for later on, and specifically if a movie is huge or if it has a huge cult following like Super Mario, some of the things laying around your shop are worth thousands and thousands of dollars.
We
Not more.
we do have some, you know, when you make something, you usually make molds for it, and then you run the pieces in it. I've got 10 and 15-year-old molds that are from movies that, you know, Masters of the Universe we've got molds for, you know, things like that, and like for Star Trek, we've got a ton of molds, but they're the one place that it never leaves the shop, because Paramount's very, you know, they don't want their stuff out there because they're not, or if they do, they want a piece of whatever you're getting for selling it.
Yeah.
So I've got a ton of Star Trek molds and stuff from Next Generation on that I can't do anything with unless it's with Paramount.
And you would think Golem and Globus would be all about that extra cash.
Yeah, the canon group for Master of the Universe. Back to what we were talking about. So you're a young guy, I would imagine. So you're probably in your mid-20s when you started there.
I pretty much. Well, let's see. In '94, I got married. I was in my 30s. So yeah, I started about, you know, 26, 27.
Right. So you remember, I find it fascinating because I often do this too. And I'm only in my 40s, but look back and about, oh, well, they put me up here. It's far different than the actual experience. So I'm kind of curious, what was the first movie that you were on, like on location?
Beastmaster 2.
Which is one that we all still love and adore, right? After all this time. What did you do? What did you do on the Beastmaster 2, sir?
The Beastmaster 2, we did I was assisting my partner, John Pfeiffer, who was the swamp creature.
Oh.
So we filmed it. It was filmed out here in Santa Monica Mountains, you know, close to where they shot MASH. You know, I was just assisting with him on that. an very early set time. One of the ones was for, I was on a I'm trying to remember the name of the group. I can't remember the name of the group.
Guns N' Roses, AC/DC.
It was the band that the drummer had his arm chopped off.
Oh, Def Leppard.
Def Leppard.
Def Leppard, yes. It was a music video for Def Leppard, and they had a scene where they wanted liquid metal to boil on the drummer's kit.
Right.
So that was me doing the liquid metal on the kit.
That's
So
pretty
set's always-
iconic. Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely iconic. So set work is always very interesting. One of the most fun sets and one of the most crazy sets was on True Lies, where I was the horse.
Now, there's so many jokes here, and I just don't know you well enough, Paul, about which side of that horse.
I was the horse's ass.
There you go. There you go. That's where I thought we were going.
So basically, what happened is that they had in the beginning of the True Lies, they have a horse that Arnold's chasing around town, and he goes into the elevator with the horse, and then the horse goes up. Well, unfortunately, the weight capacity for those elevators, they filmed it in the Bonaventure Hotel down in Los Angeles. It wouldn't lift up a horse. So we created this mechanical horse where I was inside it and Arnold was sitting on top of it. And I puppeted the horse's head and his tail. And there's all kinds of cracks, jokes that, Arnold was like, oh, I just farted. He got a big kick out of that.
So what you're telling us is you carried Arnold through that performance.
I did.
Well, I have to give you a compliment because I sure as shit did not know that was a mechanical horse as many times as I've seen that movie.
It's the one that's in the elevator is mechanical. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. I actually I was in Los Angeles a couple of years ago. I actually was in that hotel and went up that elevator envisioning that scene in my head. So.
Yep, there you go.
So were you on, is that the only thing you did on the movie?
On that one, well, we also did, I wasn't part of it, but my partner John was, there's a scene also in the beginning of the movie where Arnold's at the plateau out in the middle of some Arctic or cold area, and he's chased through the snow, and these two Dobermans leap at him, and he smashes their heads together. And Well, we made the Dobermans that smashed and went to the ground. Now, mind you, I wasn't. John Pfeiffer was the one that was there, and I'll tell you, Jim Cameron is not an easy person to work with.
We have heard that before from many, many people, and actually, that was about. I wasn't going to be specific about Jim Cameron, but I want to hear some stories that you may have with some directors, not only good or bad, but because.
Well, basically, Jim was a very demanding director. In fact, I believe the reason why we got that is that very early on in Jim's career, Alan Apone, who started our company, and Doug White, they worked on a movie called Galaxy of Terror.
They worked at New World, right?
Yes. No, they worked at Mel. Galaxy of Terror. We created the. I think they built the famous worm.
The thing that fucks the girl.
Yeah,
Sorry, just to let you, just in case you know, it's that kind of show.
Yeah, yeah.
Robert Englund says that he still gets asked about that today, which is funny because he's Freddy Krueger. But he's like, "Aren't you in that movie where the thing fucks the girl?"
Yes,
sorry.
So I think that's where Jim Cameron remembered us because we did that thing. That's why he had us do the horse in True Lies. But the funny thing about Jim is that all his crew, everybody that worked with him, has worked with him for years and years and years. But can be a horrible person to his own people. I saw him lash out at a AD, and she was in tears. But she came back the next day because, you know, he's got all the work, and I guess they learned that that's just his way.
Is it an anger management problem? Is it a perfectionist problem? Because he is a perfectionist.
I think it's a perfectionist problem, and if the people around him don't achieve that that's how he responds to get the perfection out of people. And a lot of people can, like I said, the people that worked with him, you know, you ask them, well, how could you put up with this? Well, he's always working, and he always comes back around afterwards. But at the moment, when he's shooting something and he doesn't get what he wants, you know about it.
Yeah. And he's an actual screamer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he was at the time. I don't know how he's moved on, you know, but, you know, the stories about Jim are true, you know. Other directors that were pretty tough were, you know, Joe Pitka is a director that did he always ended up doing a Super Bowl commercial. So, and he was a very, very difficult director to deal with. So, but other than that, you know, most like on the Star Trek, you know, they had a running a different director every week, or, you know, sometimes they'd bring them back for another 2 weeks and stuff like that. So, and they were always usually very nice and very good.
Well, who was somebody that you've really enjoyed working with? Maybe someone, you know.
Well, one of the absolute nicest person in the world to work with was Scott Bakula.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, from Enterprise. Knew everybody's name on the set, and he made sure he said hello to everybody, and he was just a pleasure to work with. One of the funny things that we worked out as there was one scene where they're in the conference room and Scott's in there, and then Jeffrey comes in, and we wanted to have some fun with Scott. Now, mind you, the antennas, they were noisy to a degree. So when they're moving, they're going squeaky, squeaky, squeak, squeak, right? Like that. So there was a scene where everybody decided that this was just going to be fun to mess with Scott, okay? That on top of the antennas, there was one scene where one of the antennas was damaged or something. I don't remember what it was. But we got one of those 76 gas station balls.
Yep.
Stuck it on top of the antenna. And Jeffrey came into the room, and he's behind Scott, and I'm squeaking it, you know, trying to get Scott to turn around. And he's like so professional. He's still going through his lines, even though he knows what the hell are you doing back there, you know, because it's not supposed to sound like that. Then when he turned around and saw the ball on top of his head, everybody cracked up on set.
I do have another question. Knowing that they're remote controlled, what is the range on a set of Andorian antenna?
It could be at least 50 feet away.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I just questions that I'll never get another chance to ask, so I'm going to ask them now. So 50 feet, it's a pretty good range.
So back to, you started out and then mechanical. What have been some of your favorite accomplishments throughout the time?
Some of them are, you know, I designed and built a really cool mechanical robot for the movie Sphere.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And it's in the very beginning of the movie, and it was a very large budget, you know, movie, and it was a very, you know, we spent a lot, you know, almost 3 or 4 months building this thing. And sometimes in this industry, you have to, you know, let stuff roll off your shoulder and stuff like that, because when it finally got onto camera, it was never seen on the camera. It was seen through a video feed, and it could have been this tiny little thing. You never would have known the difference.
Right.
So it never got to play that, and that was the other thing where in this industry, you know, you if you work on a movie or you work on a TV show, you'd love to see your name in the credits, and a lot of times it doesn't happen. So early on, I learned not to take that for granted, and if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Now, do you not know that until you actually go and see the movie that your name's in the credit, that your name's not in the credits?
Correct.
Oh,
Because it's usually it comes down to production, whether they have a limit that they can put in. And you
Right.
don't know what that is.
Yeah. So, and that's just the amount of money they spent. That's just bad producing and managing of time and energy and the cash, right?
Big time. Yep.
Yeah, it's just bad. Anyway, I was looking at some of your TV work and I'm bumfuzzled. What the hell were you guys doing on 2.5 Men? And how much blow were you doing with Charlie Sheen?
What we did on 2.5 Men is on
I mean, I'm not going to judge you.
yes.
This is between us. I would have done blow with Charlie Sheen too. Just so I could have said, I would have lived on 10 years of telling that story. Keep going.
One of the things the shop is known for is its makeup effects.
yeah.
And there's 2 or 3 episodes, I believe, on the show where John Cryer goes into an old age makeup where he's this old man in a bar.
Yep.
That talks to Charlie, and the person that designed and made that makeup was Kevin Haney.
Mm-hmm.
Bring in for to work at the shop when the job thing. So he did all the prosthetics on him and stuff like that, just like he did all the prosthetics on Sam in Django.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want you to lie to me. Sorry. I'm glad I could make you smile. Go ahead, James.
I do have a question, because one of the other things that Mel has done, and I was a big fan of that, sadly is not there anymore, but you've done it for other places as well. The Borg costumes and the non-pyrotechnical electrical elements for Star Trek: The Experience, but also Disney Splash Mountain in Japan, doing the fiberglass characters and things like that, as well as doing fabrication for Universal City Walk.
Mhm.
And what I want to get at there is, what's the difference when you're thinking about how to make these things? How is it different if it's for a movie that may be, once it's filmed and it's on film, maybe, the wear and tear doesn't matter, versus if it's going to be displayed. And I would imagine the Borg costumes for Star Trek: The Experience were daily wear. So is there a difference in how you prepare, or how you, for lack of a better term, machine those?
Absolutely, because you have to find out. The perfect example is commercial versus movie.
Yep.
Okay, when you design and build something for a commercial, it's got to last for 3 days. Okay, so that will determine and guide you as far as what materials you use. Okay, there are a lot of materials that look great for 3 days, but after 3 weeks, just won't be there. They'll break down. So then you have to go to different materials when you do something for a movie, and the material has to last for that mechanical movements, or last for the makeup, or whatever it is. And it's typically, the material is a lot more expensive to use on a movie than it is for something like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, what's some of the things that you've done for different amusement parks?
Well, for funny thing is for Universal Studios, back in the day, we did. There was a Doc Brown exhibit where he's up there at the top of the clock tower.
Mm-hmm.
So we did the character and the lights and stuff that went through him. I mean, we've done things like at the Scientology L. Ron Hubbard's
Mm-hmm.
museum in Hollywood. They had a room where they wanted a volcano to be able to erupt because of the where they'd bring these young recruits in and sit them down and learn the Hubbard story and brainwash into them the whole Scientology thing, and at the end of it, this volcano would erupt. So we built that.
Oh,
And you,
stop there. So because, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but
sure.
screw it. I don't want a Charlie Sheen blow story anymore. I want a great Scientology story. You just keep just keep on adding on. I'd love to hear this
Well,
about the volcano.
the funny thing is the only thing about Scientology is that they have a lot of money,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and they are persistent. So let's say we did that job back in '94, okay.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, my partner John says, "Well, let me just go see what this is all about." So he signed up for an initial thing.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I get mail with his name on it from Scientology. To this day, and that's 15, 20, that's 20 years.
It's 26 years.
Yeah, 26. And they're
Wow.
still sending to try and recruit. So,
Maybe-
you know, and it was just sad to see all these young kids that were recruited into it and stuff like that were just believing all this crap. And it was, you know,
Maybe there's a happy middle ground here, though. They show persistence, and you need persistence in interns. If we can get these two together, I
You
don't know
need
how it
to
would work.
recruit from Scientology, sir.
that's
Or
a
recruit the
thought.
recruiters.
That's a thought.
So that's odd to me because you think, oh, these guys only work in television, commercials, film, but that makes sense. There's so much out there that you would be doing that, and it didn't even occur to me to ask about Scientology.
Yeah.
What's another odd one? Another maybe industry that you've
Well,
worked?
the other industry, I mean, you know, for Universal Studios, Islands of Adventure in Florida.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've been there. Yeah.
Okay, we built all their torches.
Oh, yeah. When you're walking the path. Yeah.
When you walk into different places and a thing, you know, and that, you know, in our industry, we're either really busy or we're dead. Okay, so when we're dead, you try and get something to supplement.
Mm-hmm.
And we got involved with building these torches that light on command and stuff like that. They actually had one at Universal Studio and Universal City Walk out here in California at Hot Topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like an offshoot. Another offshoot we've done display pieces for coffee bean, tea, and leaf.
Okay.
Because we've got a full manufacturing shop that we can build prop pieces, woodwork, stuff like that. So, you know, we try and supplement it when things aren't good. Because, you know, there was a big time there in the early 2000s and stuff where visual effects, practical effects were, oh no, we'll do it in computer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and after the whole thing from Star Wars and that died down and everybody now was trying to do everything on set with visuals, okay, many a shop went out of business.
Yep.
Okay, because when the whole Star Wars thing broke, tons of shops opened up. Okay, and when the whole computer animation stuff came in like that, you know, it killed a lot of shops.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we and to this day it is, you know, 50% of what it was in the day. Okay,
Yeah.
as far as what it is, but it's kind of turned around a little bit back where the directors and stuff want physical stuff on set.
Yeah.
They want to see stuff. Okay. And they don't, you know, they got so much green screen stuff going on that, you know, it tends to be sometimes a combination of effects. Like we did makeup for the Avengers movie, where Captain Rogers' girlfriend, she shows up old.
Yeah.
Well, we did an entire old age makeup for her, okay, but they had to add to it for some reason with CGI. So that's where we're at right now, trying to find that balance.
No, it's a tool, right? And we've talked to a lot of directors on here, and they always say, like anything else, it's a tool. And it's CGI is great when it supplements what you can see already.
Correct.
When it erases the line to whatever mechanism's being operated, right? The hose or whatever's when it's there, that's when it works best, is when you combine all these tools. If you overuse any one tool, then it doesn't quite work.
This is true.
Yep.
Yeah, and
So
also from our standpoint, I still feel like if you don't have practical effects, animatronics, makeup in a movie, you're losing some of that magic that is Hollywood. You have to have those elements into it, because if they're gone, what's the point?
Well, we believe that.
yeah, I know we're talking, but we're also people. I also don't own a Kindle. You know, I just like books. I'm a tangible kind of guy when I carry it around.
So
go ahead, Jeff.
we you know, you've worked on Captain America, the Avengers, Super Mario Brothers, but I do want to ask about Spy Hard.
Sure.
Do you have any stories of working on that movie? Leslie Nielsen, Andy Griffith, for God's sakes.
Andy was old.
Yeah, and
that wasn't old age makeup.
He was moving slow by that time. Okay, we did a ton of stuff for that show. The mechanical Velociraptor, you know, is what I worked on. As far as, and there was another one where you do an RC control for the mouth and the eyes but my partner John Pfeiffer was in it actually for it. But we did a lot of makeup effects, a lot of the stretch arm where he's falling off the mountain or something, holding on to somebody. So it was a fun set, but it was a crazy set, you know, because they were all over the place with what they were doing.
Yeah, because it has to be weird that you did stuff for True Lies, and then here you are working on a movie that parodies True Lies.
Exactly. I think that's part of the reason why they brought us in.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the next one. You worked for years on Star Trek, and now you guys are working on the Orville, which is just the next generation.
Right. And now
with Seth.
Well, we actually worked only on the first 2 seasons of Orville.
Oh,
and
then,
and then basically what happens is that, you know, with a show like, or any show, it's, if there's a property master or a customer or something like that likes your shop, okay, then they use you. Okay. When season 3 came around for Orville, they changed the property master. They changed the customer, and they had their own favorite shop that they went to.
And is that because it went to Hulu, or is it going to Hulu?
No, it was just because they changed personnel.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that on Orville, the person that brought us in was Joe Porro, who was the customer on the show. But then he left after the 2nd year. And when he gone, then we were off.
Yeah.
But, you know, as back to Star Trek, I mean, we're back on Picard.
Yep.
So, you know, we did a whole bunch of stuff for the first season, and I've actually done stuff for season 2. What
are you doing? What did you do for the first season, and what are you going to be doing for season 2?
Season 1, we did I believe it's the first episode, when the data drawer opens up and Data's all in pieces. Everything but the head the head was from a previous, I believe, one of the Star Trek movies. Everything, all the body parts were actually me.
Oh, really?
Oh, gee.
That's
Are
awesome.
you gonna start doing Star Trek conventions now and signing as his body double?
You should.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's because they had the date ahead, but they wanted the rest of the body, so we ended up casting me at the shop because I was around,
Yeah.
And but we did that. We've done a bunch of props for it. We've done and then at the end of of Picard, we did the actual body that Picard morphed into,
Yeah.
or that Picard changed into. Before it looked like Picard, they had a body on it, and we did that. They didn't show it a lot. That's another one of those things, you put all that effort in, you want it to have more screen time, but we're not in control of that.
Right.
We have interviewed someone that did some body work for Dr. Sleep and things like that, and the amount of detail that never
Robert
gets seen.
Kurtzman.
Yeah, or that's under dirt, or that's it's like and you're like, oh, that's somebody did a lot of effort there. And
well, one of the funny things is that they'll what we've learned over the years is that somebody comes in and says, we got this movie, we got this prop, and we have to budget as far as, well, how much is going to cost to make this severed head. Okay, so then we have to ask, well, how's it going to be seen? Close up, medium, background, So a lot of times, whenever they say, well, it's just going to be in the background, it's always the first one up in the shot. It's right out there. So we've learned to, we no longer make stuff at the shop that can't be seen close up. Okay, and a lot of jobs I have to turn down because they haven't got the money to do that. But I'm not in control of it once it leaves the shop. But unfortunately, when it gets to set, the director says, "What's this crap?" And then it reflects on the shop. So we're no longer at that position. We're always aware of what they possibly could shoot, even though they said, "Oh no, they'll never see that." So. And on Picard season 2, we've reached that point where I can't say what we're working on.
No, you didn't tell me about doing blow with Charlie Sheen. You wouldn't tell me about you converting to, what's the god's name? I can't remember. I was sitting here trying to remember. What is it? The actual alien overlord?
Yeah, it's something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Xenon. Is that
Xenon. Yeah. It's something like that.
I've got to ask, because I believe, and my information could be wrong, but going back to Star Trek, Mel worked on some of the Next Generation, and I believe the Armus costume responsible for killing Tashi Yar, the character of Armus, was, I believe, credited to Mel. And you also worked on what some people consider one of the greatest unresolved plot lines, doing the parasitic beings, the little slug type things.
Yes.
In Star Trek. And so some of those, but one of the questions I actually had was,
is this a question or is this just commentary?
I want to give credit where it's due, because those are characters that people love and still want to say, what happened to the parasitic? But you did the Borg, and you did a lot of the background Borg for, I believe, Star Trek First Contact and things like that. All that had to be designed, all those extras. And my question may be a weird one, but when you're doing those costumes for extras, do you know the measurements of the extras, or do you make the part and then they find somebody that can fit it?
Typically, they'll give us, what we'll do is they'll say, we need so many of this costume size. And then they find people to fit in it. Or if it's a lead in it, then we have to get the lead in. So we created 7 of 9's full Borg costume. So we had to do a full body cast of Jerry Ryan.
So now were you in
that
the
had
shop
to have been
day?
such a terrible day.
It was, sometimes there are tough days, and sometimes But she was great. She, you know, it was, and that costume was literally, you know, created. It was almost painted on her. It was so tight.
Yeah.
Uh, and she was so happy when they finally worked her out of that costume.
I was about to say, I believe, and I may be getting my stories, but I've heard people say that taking that off of her was not a quick process.
No,
That there was no quick restroom break. There was
no.
no, that it was a, like you said, it was very tight. There was some binding things going on. And
Yeah, I mean, just because, you know, Bob Blackburn, that's the way he wanted the design. He was the designer, and so, you know, it was an uncomfortable suit, you know, but it looked great, you
You
know.
did, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. So much so that no one's forgot it ever since they've
Yeah,
seen it, right?
I,
That's true. Now, so do you still? I'm kind of curious. Now that you own the place, you're. I mean, you're. Do you go out or on location still, or I mean, because you do work a
I
lot with
it's
Marvel. Do you spend a lot of time in Atlanta? I think a lot of things are shot
it's a
in
lot,
Atlanta.
it's a lot less than it was because I have to be around the shop and stuff.
Right.
And usually I send a crew. Okay.
Hmm.
You know, unfortunately now if it's, you know, if it's a puppeteering job and stuff like that, I'll usually try and get in on it because it's a SAG job because I'm a
Yeah.
SAG puppeteer. And, you know, to this day, I still get checks from Star Trek.
I was going
Right?
to ask you earlier about residuals. I really
Yeah.
was, and then I thought, ah, shit, Joe. It's.
No, that's it's
But
definitely a thing.
what's your smallest check?
3 cents.
Yep.
Okay, you know, and I put it on the wall.
I don't blame you.
I mean, you know, there's a 49-cent stamp on it, and it's a 3-cent check. So how silly is that? You know,
It is
but
fairly silly.
it's one of the jokes that I make, that the working in education, we have a retirement company and that does our investments, and every year they give away free T-shirts, and I always just want to say, whatever that T-shirt costs, I don't care if it's 10 cents, could you just put that in my retirement?
yeah,
But oh well.
doesn't happen.
So do you still like to go out on location?
I do. Yeah, it's a different change. You know, it's production companies have you know, it's like my old partner Alan. He spent because he's the makeup artist.
Mm-hmm.
And right now he's become Mark Wahlberg's makeup artist,
Yeah.
and he's gone 9 months out of the year. Okay, he's down in South America right now,
Yeah.
film with Mark. I wouldn't want to be away that long. Okay, it takes a certain type of person to be able to do something like that, and
Live out of a hotel, be a
yeah,
gypsy.
it's the whole thing, you know, and who knows what it's going to be like now, you know, post COVID. You know, nobody's going anywhere, though. You know, productions are starting slowly coming back. Like, you know, Star Trek starting back up again. You know, we do a lot of stuff for Nickelodeon
Mm-hmm.
or their Danger Force or the Henry Danger.
Mm-hmm.
We did all the masks and stuff for the kids, and
Mm-hmm.
that's still filming. So, but the protocols and the stuff on set is crazy. Uh,
Well, yeah. Elaborate a
I,
little bit on that. I mean,
well, well,
are you getting tested every
typical.
day or
Well,
what?
here's what happened. Like just recently,
mm-hmm.
on the Nickelodeon show Danger Force, these kids have, you know, superheroes,
Mm-hmm.
and they have costumes and stuff, and they have masks that we've made for them in the past. But the kids grow up, so their faces get, you know, they grow out of the size of the mask they originally did.
Yeah.
So in the beginning of the year, we had to send two makeup artists to set to do another face cast of the kids so that we can resculpt the masks for them. And before my guys could get onto set, they had to go down there the day before and get tested. And then when they went on the day, you can only go to a certain place, and it's very strict as far as you know,
Right.
the interaction. There's no more guests on set, none of that. can happen anymore. Okay, at least until this dies down.
Has it changed any of the way you make anything? I mean, just thinking
No,
about getting
pretty much.
supplies, or
It's pretty much the same.
well, one other thing I wanted to ask about was you all also have the ability for people like me to go to your shop, your mailproductsusa.com, and you sell the stuff. So I could, in theory, try to do some of this stuff myself. Just thinking about that, what type of, I mean, are there certain clients that you see a lot, or is it people like me trying to figure out?
Just to give you more of a understanding about what happens is 2 or 3 years ago, Alan Apone started Mail Products, okay, and that was creating prosthetic parts and Pax makeup for the industry. When Alan and I split, and I took over Mel, okay, Mel Products now is a separate company. It's still in the same building, but so they do all the manufacturing at the building, and I'm not part of that anymore. But I do all the special effects now. That's how we split. What was the question again, as far as specific?
I was just wondering about what sort of do you see a lot of people doing this? Is it people doing interested in buying these products for doing conventions, cosplay, or what sort of clientele?
It was a very big business as far as conventions and stuff like that, and cosplay. Now what Mel Products is pretty much they sell a lot to the makeup houses around in Hollywood and around the country. And then people go into like Nigel's Beauty Supply there's a whole section of Mel Products there that they can pick up items that we've made for the makeup industry and stuff like that.
Okay. So as we start to wind down, I had one question, and because I feel that you're kind of nerdy about things because you work in this industry. Who did you geek out about the most, or who maybe kind of you've met them and it's like, oh, you just, because you meet so many, maybe starstruck is the word.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a director, an actor. I mean, we do a lot of conventions, we moderate a lot. We don't, but there's still every once in a while, there's one or two, for us that will go, oh, and you have to kind of bury it deep and not sound stupid when you start to talk to them.
For me personally, it really hasn't been anybody specific. One of the nicest guys that I've ever met was Martin Sheen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he was just.
He didn't know you were doing blow with his kid.
Right. He had no
Sorry,
idea.
it's an ongoing joke. I can't stop.
and that was when I was younger and when I was first at the shop, and he actually came in and talked to me, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Martin Sheen talking to me.
Yeah.
And I just watched Apocalypse Now, It's
right.
I thought I would be, impressed with Arnold and stuff like that, but not really. It didn't. So for me personally, there really hasn't been a lot of awestruck moments.
Joe hinted at, we mentioned this earlier, but I'm just kind of curious because it seems like repeatedly in your company's repertoire of clients, the person who shows up the most is Samuel L. Jackson. So
that's basically because, first of all, Sam works all the time. I mean, the resumes that Sam has is just amazing. But the biggest thing about that is that for a period of, it's no longer, but for a period of 7 or 8 years, Alan Apone, my partner, was his personal makeup artist. So anytime anything that Sam was in, Alan was working on him, and he was working on his movie, so that we had to do stuff for Sam.
Yeah.
I've got to ask one more question, and it's just because it's listed on the services your shop provides: vehicle modification.
Yes.
What are some common vehicle modifications you do for film?
Well, we did, we built a full running Thomas the Tank Engine.
I saw that one
Yeah.
because my kid loves Thomas, and I was trying to. Who'd you do it for?
For parades. They used it in parades.
Mhm.
Back in the early days of Mel, they did all the mechanical vehicles for Metal Storm,
Yeah.
the classical.
Mhm.
Right now, interesting thing is I'm redoing an old '66 Batmobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a friend of mine had a kit from 35 years ago, and I finally bought it off him, and so I'm trying to restore that, just for personal geek kind of, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you? If I could figure out how to do it, I'd do it best. I've got to ask, what's the base model of Thomas the Tank Engine, and what's his top speed?
Yeah. It's a slow mover, boy. Let me tell you.
So it's not like a Ferrari engine under Thomas. We're not gonna.
Not at all.
All right. One last question, and then I'll let you go. I got to know, what have you taken from the set from something that you just keep at your house?
At my house.
There's got to be something.
I haven't got, no, I really, not from any set. Yeah, not from any sets. When we, yeah, nothing really. I had taken when we were in the whole fire effects and stuff like that, we started doing fireplaces and stuff for very high-end people. Got a couple napkins from Simon Cowell's house.
So you were putting in fireplaces at Simon Cowell's?
Yeah. And then eventually he ended up selling the house. So, it's like, so it was very strange. We get into a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah.
That is odd. I can't believe that wasn't your oddest question when we were asking earlier. Oddest question. Well, I was in Simon Cowell's, still in his napkins, put in a fireplace. Well,
Was it like a fireplace that had an effect, or was it just he just wanted a big fireplace?
You push a button, it comes on.
No, okay. Well, I mean, we have interviewed people that have done pyrotechnic effects, and they definitely have that skill set. So
yeah, Andre Ellingson, right, Chad?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate your time so much. Thank you for coming on the show. Gentlemen, you have anything else?
No, I just sincerely thank you. And like I said, I've been obsessed since Jeffrey Combs shared that photo. So thank you for not immediately blocking me when I contacted you. This has been phenomenal. Thank you.
All right, Paul. We're going to stop recording, and then we'll just say bye to you, okay? This has been Bonehead Weekly. Thank you, Paul.